I tried directing a question to him. Like, I just said, hey, like, thanks so much for joining. You know, a VP is like, I really appreciate you taking the time. So what were your thoughts on it? In front of all the people on the call. And of course, he doesn't respond. There's no comments, just silence.
You are listening to The Deal Breakdown with Derek Shebby, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to the B2B Deal Breakdown podcast, where we give you the play-by-play on some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Shebby, and I'm excited to be meeting with Connolly. He's a business development director in logistics and transportation industry. Welcome, Casey.
Derek, appreciate you having me. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on with all your success that you've been having lately. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I've been in actually sales since I freshly graduated out of college. I've been 6 years now. You know, sales is it's an experience-driven kind of role. So my first thought was trying to find a company that was going to give me a good foundation, and that's when I started slinging copiers at Xerox. It was one of my first sales roles, and actually, you know, learning how to develop just the foundational skills of sales, cold calling. Xerox was door-to-door outside selling, so about 25% cold calls, trying to set meetings, but then the rest, I had my own territory, going door-to-door, trying to get meetings and get people to change into the copier game, which, you know, back in 2014, 15, not the easiest role when copiers are kind of phasing out. So definitely it took some grit and learned quite a bit during that time for 2.5 years. And once I jumped out of there, took a leap of faith at the company I'm at now and been here 4 years. So it's been a ride.
That's great. So tell me a little bit more about the industry that you're in now.
Currently, a company I'm working for is called Aerospace Technologies. So essentially we're a startup company, or it was a startup about 4 years ago at this point, but essentially disrupting the logistics space with modern technology to make the process a little bit easier for our customers. If you know anything about logistics and transportation, you've seen a lot in the news lately about the supply chain industry. It's outdated. Everything is run off Excel sheets, email communication, and manual phone calls. So if you can imagine, you know, a lot of people don't really think about, you know, how did this get to my desk today? You know, how did this laptop that we're talking on come together for me to be able to use, or this cell phone that we're working on, right? All the chips, the processors that are in these things. We're a company that facilitates actual logistic transportation using our driver network to get parts moved from point A to point B in a time critical manner. So there's companies out there like FedEx, UPS that you guys, you know, use your Amazon shipping for sometimes. Those are next day services, not urgent. We focus on the time critical, very urgent, and high value commodities. So I focus in the healthcare space. So a lot of things that we could be transporting are like kidneys, organs for transplant. There's actually a patient on the table waiting for this shipment to arrive. And then also, you know, high-tech manufacturing, like Apple processors that make your computer work. They're high-value commodities, about, you know, $150,000 per component. So it needs a little high sensitivity, transparency from getting that shipment moved from point to point. And right now, the current industry status quo is pick up the phone and need a courier to come pick this up and get it shipped. And guess what? They toss it up to the gods and hope it gets there on time. That's crazy when you're dealing with something that's life-saving, like a kidney, or something that's that expensive. And if it gets lost, it's just $150 to $1,000 out the window. It's mind-blowing. So as, you know, Domino's and Uber revolutionized this kind of industry, and I say Domino's because you can literally track a pizza. Right. You know, our CEO and our co-founders realized we've got to bridge this gap somewhere in the, you know, time-critical space. And so Aerospace was born using technology to essentially automate the process. You can track our drivers on a map down to the street level, so similar to companies that you see today. But then we also combine the air portion. So we use the belly of commercial airlines to facilitate the air transport. And that's, again, something else I learned in this industry, that, you know, when you're on a plane, there's typically outside of your luggage, you know, an animal, a human body, kidney, you know, some other electronic devices, and many other things that you just don't even think about, where the airlines create a lot of revenue filling the body of the plane outside of the passengers and luggage. And so that's what we do. We fill the belly of those planes with our customers' products, and then we facilitate the pickup and the delivery on both ends for the full door-to-door service.
Wow. I had no idea that even existed.
Right.
And it's also really interesting how you go from all the way to kidney to, you were talking about Apple. I mean, just products there, and it's a wide spectrum, but it's also, I love your example of how you're comparing it to things that aren't really urgent. Like if we're saying we want next day shipping or something like that with FedEx, it's not really, the things that you're talking about, life-saving, urgency that we need. That's really powerful. So it makes sense to me about the challenges that your offering solves now, because there's obviously got to be different organizations all over the place that you probably are still finding more about, new ones that are coming up. So this specific deal that you're talking about today, why did you choose this particular deal to share?
There's so many different factors and variables that go into deals in general, right? And whether that's starting with one that's just an absolute shutdown from the start, one that moves super fast, or one that is, on the edge, but you facilitate some good conversations that move it forward. This one kind of had a plethora of all of them mixed in one, where, from day one, I didn't think this was going to go anywhere. And then 2 months in, it turned into one of the fastest deals that I've closed, and also a very lucrative one that I've closed. So it's been exciting, and also introduced me to a whole different vertical within the healthcare industry that I haven't even tapped into, and used as a great example for other new prospects and customers that I'm currently working with now.
Dude, fantastic. Well, I can't wait to hear about it. So what size a deal are we talking about here?
The way our kind of deals work within our organization, it really comes down to revenue, right? So people shipping stuff, every single shipment costs something. And so we base our values off of annual revenue. So how often they're going to ship within a year's time frame. So for this deal, my monthly quota essentially, and this is all as a startup, we're navigating the quotas every year. So this is brand new quota this year, but for now it's about $200K a month, right? And so for this deal, it was about $280K annual revenue. So it's great. So I hit my 1 month target, which puts me at ease for that month alone, and then also sets me up for a good quarter, but kind of encapsulates the whole prospect of putting together, the revenue from month 1 through month 3, all the way through the rest of the year.
Yeah. Okay. So on a typical month, if you don't have a deal like this size, how many deals do you typically need to close to hit your budget?
In this space alone, because we're such a niche organization, right? So there's other logistics companies out there, like the XPOs, the DHLs. They do so many other services like LTL, which is the large truckloads, those big freight trucks you see on the freeway, right? Yeah. That stuff, fully full, FTL, a couple other services that are out there that we don't even touch. We're a very niche company, time critical, same day services for air or ground dedicated transport, right? So what that does is that really kind of limits the focus of what I can sell, but it also is kind of a unique thing because we're really good at something that's very specific. So when you get to the right people, they really know what they would use us for, and they really see the value of kind of the innovation that we're providing to the space. Now, the difference of that is, though, options of prospects become a little bit smaller. So the search is a little bit harder, right? Because a lot of companies out there do what we do on top of 15 other services. So a lot of companies like to have the full overarching aspect of everything. Well, we try to do, and what I try to portray to these people is, having airspace on your team is like having, a Swiss Army knife in your pocket, right? You've got a bunch of plethora of services. They're good at all of them. But if you talk to people who use FedEx, Express, and kind of other things, the service is kind of a lackluster. Why? Because it's a small portion of the big things of what they do. What we do is we can come in, facilitate the need for that, and provide kind of an added value to companies like the FedExes, like the XPOs, and like direct customers where, they'll use FedEx for the overnight stuff, but I need somebody who's really dedicated to my time critical stuff. And that's where we come in and really shine.
Nice. That makes sense. So just also let the listeners understand about the type of deal that you close. Since it was 1 month budget, do you look at your budget in terms of like an annual, like from an annual standpoint, and just say that you want to hit a certain annual and the breakdown of 1 month of that annual budget? Or do you actually have deals that you close every single month that are like, maybe you close 4 deals or 5 deals or, 10 deals a month that end up being, that monthly budget?
Not with the way that it's formulated today, I kind of take it as a quarterly approach, not annual. You got to annual, yes, but quarterly to its core focus, right? Sets up my prospecting and kind of my activities for that week and month to make sure I'm succeeding those roles, right? And so when it comes to this specific deal, not necessarily thinking of it as going to get me through the long term. It's not $1 million deal, right? It's a good chunk to get me through a month, but it's not anything. But it was more the complexity of the sale that I kind of enjoyed about it. And that's kind of where it drove me to kind of bring that up in this conversation.
Sounds good. How'd you find this deal? How'd it first come about?
So being new to this, like I said, now I've been here 4 years, so I've taught myself pretty much everything, right? I started at Xerox, and I'm doing copier sales, and then moved straight into logistics and transportation. So the benefit that I had was, the company was a startup. So when I joined, there was, maybe 10 employees. I was interviewed by the CEO in a small kind of cabinet room, essentially, where, it was, 850 square feet, smaller, not a big office. And then I've watched that grow to where last May we just, built out to a huge corporate building up in Carlsbad, where we can have over 100, 120, 150 employees or more. So I've been there from the beginning to the end, but what that allowed me to do is adapt and kind of be a sponge. So, I was the second sales rep hired. The first rep was somebody who had a plethora of industry experience, pretty much a book of business to come transfer over. Yeah. And I, learned a lot from her, took a lot of her advice, watched her kind of do what she did, and then also took a lot of my time to build a foundation, right? I could come in and I could start selling the differentiators of aerospace, but without knowing kind of the rest of the industry, I was at a disadvantage. And so I initially took the time to kind of prepare myself, learn about my competitors, learn about the industry, what are the problems of the industry. And logistics, I think why it turned so successful is because it's not that difficult of a concept. What it's lacking, right? It's lacking technology, transparency, innovation, and just streamlined processes, which we all interact with day to day with iPhones and phones. Sure. But in the supply chain industry, it's all brand new. Like, it's just ready for disruption. It's such a big web of complexity. It takes time to build out. So as, somebody getting into this space and kind of learning, developing those tool sets set me up for success to essentially now learn everything about my company. And once I was able to kind of know everything about my company, like the back of my hand through trial and error, that's when I kind of set me up for success in terms of being, an industry leader, so to speak, in this space.
Nice. So then for this specific deal, did you already have this account somewhere inside the CRM, or did you cold call it, or how'd it go?
Yeah, for this one, everything that I've done, again, because being new to the space, I have no book of business. So it's all Google research, industry research. You start big, you go healthcare. Okay. Now within healthcare, you have medical devices. All right. Medical devices are key for what? Surgeries, transplants, a lot of things that go on when you're like a trauma. If someone gets in a car accident, there needs to be a rep in the field to be able to facilitate that. So I'm start thinking, all right, well, what is the need that fits within this medical device space? And then based on using Google and industry research, and then you start looking at a bunch of companies, then I kind of look, in logistics and transportation, there's got to be a budget for that, right? And so for some companies, a budget's really small, and that really depends on the size of the company. So I look for companies, $1 billion over, $500 million over. Why? Because, if they're that big, you got to imagine they're shipping things. Things got to be moving, right? And then the chances are, if they're moving things in the healthcare space, then a lot of things are time critical. So then you kind of approach downwards. And then now I go to LinkedIn and Zoom Info. Our company allows us to use, or pays for us to use, the Zoom Info software. And that's been pretty great, being able to just get specific people within the organization, high levels, and direct phone numbers and emails. And then it also associates their LinkedIn. So once I identify a company, then I identify kind of the players, the decision makers in the company, and then I look at them on LinkedIn. I'm a very face-to-face kind of guy. I learned that at Xerox, B2B, going face-to-face. You sell better in person. It's just, it always seems to work that way. So when I talk to people, especially now because of COVID, everything's remote, everything's online, everything's via phone call. So I like to pull their face up via LinkedIn. And, I'm a fan of top down. I'm also a fan of bottom up approaches, right? There's so many stakeholders included in decision making today that it's, it's not just one person. So building rapport with a group of people within a company is huge. And so you can start top down, but if the VP of operations of this company looks like a guy who's maybe a little bit older and just not too maybe tech savvy, or there's no tech in his background or anything at all, or he's been like old companies, I'm a little turned off by that because maybe he's not so open thinking. And then you come downwards and you go, oh, well, the director of logistics, a young dude, he graduated around the same time as me. He grew up in here and he's seen kind of all the levels of this. He'll be able to relate because he's in the day to day. So then I'll go, all right, I can relate to him, pull up his picture. I see him and when I pick up the phone and talk to him, it's like I'm talking in person because I have his face up there. And then I build rapport with him, get a meeting set, get buy-in from him. And then you kind of facilitate back upwards and kind of balance around that.
Nice. So that's
but again, it's all
you did here?
cold. Yeah.
Wow.
for this specific example, did the same exact process. It started at a lower level, kind of a director position, not a VP, her on the phone. And she was super nice, took my call openly, but was super transparent in the fact that, Casey, we've been with X company, which is one of our competitors, for, 6 years. We've had zero problems. We've got a great sales rep. Sales rep literally brings us, coffee and lunch all the time. And service-wise, we don't really have anything to complain about. But, we really love our sales rep, and I feel like I've got a dedicated person to me. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, no worries. And luckily, I am in a local area. They're a local company to where I am, so I have the ability to be in person. Although COVID has limited that, the option's there, right? Yeah. And so I portrayed her. I'm like, look, I live down the street too. I work down the street. We can make this as easy as you want to. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to be the one bringing you cakes every day just to match your old sales rep. But what I can promise you is a couple other things in terms of your service and day-to-day life, right? And she's like, all right, well, I'll give you the time. I'll give you the chance. We'll see what you have to say. But I'm just telling you, no expectations. Fine. So it starts off that way. And I'm sitting here like, all right, well, we'll just do the demo and see how it goes. And it's going to suck, but at least it's a company that I could have maybe, when an RFP comes up or down the road. So that's how it started. And so for me, my gut, based on previous conversations I've had, it usually turns into it's a no-go down the road.
Yeah.
Right? So
but that was the first phone call, right? So you were closing for a demo.
Well, let's skip 4 weeks of reaching out, trying to get her on the phone, right? With cold emails and calls. And then when she finally picks up, that was the first conversation.
And then did you close for a demo or did you close for an actual appointment?
Yeah. So because of what we're doing in terms of the innovation that we're bringing, it's a demonstration is really our biggest sales tool. And the demonstration provides a live order example that their team would use to place orders for this service need. And so it shows, the customer facing platform, and then it shows our mobile phone application that our drivers use. So it shows how the two communicate. None of our competitors, some have the mobile phone technology tracking, but none have a demonstration that really ties it all together. So it's a huge, once you get the demo, it's either people are going to go, yes, I really like it. Let's move forward. Yes, I really like it. Time's not now. Or, oh my God, this is incredible. And you just it's usually positive no matter what, just about timing. So getting that demo is critical.
Yeah.
But again, when you have somebody saying that they're not interested right away, it's a little disheartening.
I totally see what you're saying too. I want to highlight the fact that the way that you went about understanding your industry, in the beginning, as you were finding the deal, your CRM, but using lead 4-in-1 and then lead info and these other things you did and going through LinkedIn, looking at people. But first starting off with the healthcare vertical and thinking about what makes up that vertical and then thinking about how your offering could help them. Where could it fit in? When you started your list building from that mindset, there's so many salespeople out there that they don't even know where to start. They literally just take what's inside of their database and say, that's what's in my database. So that's where I should go. That's what I should do. And the fact that you approached it from who could we best help and thought about it yourself, really had a good idea where that is, and then narrowed them down from there. And even how you qualified the company size, right? Knowing that they would probably ship, right? They have logistics and they probably would have the money for it. I think there's an aspect there that I just really wanted to pause on there for the listeners, because having that list to start off with is so critical, and having a good list. It's just at least a good plan. It doesn't need to be perfect, but just a good logical plan of who you're going to be reaching out to. And then how you also mentioned how it was multiple touches, cold emails, cold calling before you finally got them on the phone. And then, I get what you're saying with, you finally got a hold of them. You finally got that opportunity. Now you're going oh, this opportunity's not going to really be much. You're like, oh man, all this time you spent, you still were able to find a way to secure that demo, but you're like, you don't really have high expectations. So with that in mind, tell us about the demo and how that went.
Yeah. And so again, like I said, typically demos go really well because again, we're disrupting an industry. So these are things typically people haven't seen before or things they know they've been wanting. And again, it's similar to, tracking on an Uber or Domino's. Right. You can see a car moving on a map, but now we're doing it for commercial transportation for business, right? So people know it. People it's tangible. They've used it before, but not in this aspect. So when you get them on a computer and show them that this is now available for their day-to-day business life, it registers pretty quickly. and they get the concept of what we're doing. And there's a couple other features that, with the airlines and like ETAs and kind of real-time communication that really wow people. So I'm always confident that at some degree people are going to like it. But a relationship, and the biggest thing that I've learned in logistics in this industry, supply chain in general, is these people are not BSers. I mean, there's no room or way you can BS a BSer in the logistics space, because typically these people have earned their stripes. They've been here doing it for a long time, and they've earned their way literally as from bottom up, like as a coordinator doing the routing all the way up to people making the decisions. And so, when I'm coming in as somebody who's brand new to the industry, that's why I really took a concerted approach at the beginning of my year here at Airspace to learn and to also be really good at answering any possible question that comes my way. Because I knew if I was going to succeed, I had to be able to do this on my own, do demos on my own, but also be able to answer any question, whether it's a CEO or a logistics manager, that they have about us and what we can do for them. And so that's why I really took the time to learn the industry, learn about the space, learn about the problems, learn about my competitors, and learn about, what we are really doing to help these people in the space that our competitors can't do. So with that all being said, that's the foundation of, success. But then there's the next layer of salesmanship, which is the relationship aspect. And so that for this situation is what really kind of hit me in the gut to start, like, oh, shoot, well, this is some change management that's going to have to occur. I'm going to have to rebuild, have to start over. And, when they always say high confidence of their other people, we don't sign contracts. We just sign a service agreement saying we're allowing to start with you guys, and we're going to do a couple of test shipments. And if it goes well, we'll keep using you. And our value add is the technology. We're so confident that it's so much better, they're not going to want to leave, right? So typically our churn rate is very low. Once you get on with Airspace, people typically stay. So that was my concern coming to this demo. And then once I finally got her on and I started showing her and walking through these, the things started coming out. She goes, wow. Okay. Wow. Really? And all you see is the things start turning in her head, even though I can't even see her, just by some of the things she says, it's starting to turn. And then I start, again, the demo, you relay back to what she's doing. You talk about how this can impact her day to day. You don't just sell Airspace, but you sell Airspace into her industry and what she does, right? And providing visibility to that is key. And so she's like, Casey, when you finish, honestly, I was not expecting this. I'm honestly enamored by this whole demonstration. You really wowed me. And so she's like, I got to show my team this. We got to do this again. And I'm like, all right. Not a problem. And typical, you get one person just to get the buy-in, and then you got to do another to get the team involved, right? And that comes with the users, the day-to-day users, but then also the decision makers. And so I was like, perfect, let's set that up. A week later, we got on a call, same demonstration, don't change a thing. And you have the users, and the users just start providing some positive, really good questions, right? And it doesn't always have to be positive feedback, but questions are key. Because if they're asking questions, that means they're thinking and they're thinking, wow, this is how it could help me. But then what I saw is their VP joined the call as well. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. She brought everyone that I needed. And I did my research, so I knew who the VP was. I had his LinkedIn already up, and I was like, all right, I know if he's not on today, I've got to get her to get me something with him next. So how do I do? And I see his name pop up kind of 5 minutes into the demonstration. So, and I knew he wasn't going to talk. He was on mute. And so I'm like, not a big deal. And towards the end of it, I tried directing a question to him. I just said, hey, thanks so much for joining. A VP really appreciate you taking the time. What were your thoughts on it? In front of all of the people on the call. And of course, he doesn't respond. Just no comment, just silence. And then so it redirects. We continue. It concludes. And by the end of the week, I got a message from my CEO that VP reached out to my CEO saying how much he really enjoyed what we're doing and our presentation that I shared, and that he's excited to look forward to, testing us out. So It kind of came full circle. Yeah. Nice.
So after the demo, did you set an appointment to present a proposal, or is there a quote at the end of the demo?
Yeah. So once the demo is complete and everyone has buy-in, the next process is typically pricing. So, pricing is always huge for these companies, and that's typically either when they get involved or a procurement person gets involved. Our pricing is really based off just the services provided, right? So it's not flat tariff or anything. It's really based on their volume. So usage. Exactly. So we'll request historical shipping data from them. It's just a raw Excel sheet of pickup, delivery addresses, volume, times of day, whatever needed, and we'll present like-to-like pricing. And so for me personally, I never send pricing via email. I always set a next meeting to walk through it to make sure I can handle any objections. But then at the same time, you get a feel for, the easiness of their stomach when they see that. Are they going to go, ooh, or okay. Yeah. Because you're competitive, or you're like, holy crap, you're way over the top. And we're not a price leading company because of the value you can provide. We never come in low, but we're either high or right at the mark. If people still see the value in it because of that kind of value that we can create. So getting the pricing done, that's usually just a one-to-one conversation, making sure it looks good. Another week of dialogue goes on internally, and they say, all right, Casey, looks good. Let's go ahead and get started. And then we move to an implementation. So again, for shipping, you can't just turn it on tomorrow, right? If there's a high volume area in the country, we got to make sure we have enough driver staff to cover that. And so there's about a 2 to 3 week period where based on the shipping data and volumes, we'll make sure we're covered in the areas. At this point, 4 years in, we get coverage across the country. So tip to tip, it's not a problem. Then it's really creating communication protocols, right? So we'll create an SOP, like an SLA based on, escalation communication. We work 24/7. So on Friday night at 3 a.m., who are we calling to get information if we need it, right? It's not going to be my point of contact. It's not going to be the VP. So we need to have those outlined before we begin. And so once we get going, I would tell my customers, like, I want to do this right I don't care if it takes 2-3 weeks or how much time it needs to, but the day we start, I want to start as if we've been working together over a year. And I know that through experience, that I've rushed some deals early on in my career, that it turned into just like, 1 week in and they left, right? But that's due to my failure to set up. So take the time to get set up. Once they're set up, and not just them, but my team is fully accustomed to this new customer coming on, is fully aware of their expectations and kind of has a feel for who they are and what they do. Then we pick a go date and they start shipping. And then from there, it's just up to, the service of airspace.
Awesome. A few things, let's see, just in between this, with this specific deal. After the proposal, how long, was it the typical 1 week before they move forward, or was it a longer term or shorter term for them before they actually signed?
After that message came through to my CEO from the VP, so like that meeting was on Tuesday, that came in like on Friday, I followed up immediately with my point of contact, who's not the VP, and just said, hey, I'm so happy, the VP was able to join. Sounds like he was able to connect with my CEO. We're really looking forward to this. And she responded and said, Casey, I'm so happy you reached out. We're really looking forward to working with you guys and giving this a shot. And since then, she signed a service agreement the next week, and we moved forward to setting an implementation with services starting, like 3 weeks out.
Awesome. So you must have done the proposal like right away after the demo then, if that happened from Tuesday to Friday where he was saying that's ready to do it. So
no, I didn't have to do anything after the demo. He just reached out.
So there was no proposal yet. There wasn't even like a...
No.
Oh, man. You just crushed the demo, it sounds like.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why it came from like, Casey, we're so happy this woman brings me donuts as my rep every week. Like, you're not going to do anything, to, wow, this demo is incredible, to the VP reaching out saying, hey, I really like what you guys are doing. I'm looking forward to watching you guys work with us. Wow. So like, that's awesome. It's just that's why I said it took so many different aspects of the sales process where I thought it wasn't going to happen to it's happening to, holy crap, it's happening really fast.
That's awesome. And then in terms of this incumbent, the vendor that they had right there, was there any do you know of any sort of chance where they tried to give them to come back and compete against you guys at all?
No, so again, the industry, because of, there's so many different options in this space, right? There's so many other people you can reach out to for service that like, it's almost incestual in a sense. And what I mean by that is, in this time critical space, there's about maybe 2 to 3 big companies that are really good at this. And now Airspace gets involved. Before Airspace, they would just bounce in between the 3 providers. Like 1 year is good, but then I guess with the jacked up rates, goodbye, and move on to the next one. But like nothing changes besides the relationship. The service, the way they're operating, all those companies are doing it the exact same. Nothing's different besides the relationship with the rep and, the service, quality of service, and detailed follow-up. Airspace, you have a good relationship with the rep. You also have a quality of service that you're providing. And now you have an extra level of technology and visibility that's never been able to be available before, which is giving you an extra level of security for your most time critical and highest valuable shipment. And so that itself creates some stickiness to where now we're this much different where competitors are still fighting for Band-Aid solutions and trying to pick up the phone.
Awesome. I love the story. So I guess looking back, what are 3 things that you would say that the keys to winning this deal?
Persistence. That's anything I've learned in sales. It's, no matter what no or negative feedback you get, you just keep going. If the company does it, even if the CEO says no, you find somebody else who'll say yes. And why? You never know. Like, you could catch somebody on a bad day or a good day and they'll move you forward. So after that first phone call, I had a gut feeling of like, oh, this isn't going to go well. But like the optimism of our demonstration and being able to, knowing that my skill set could maybe convince them differently, having that positive mindset was really helpful. So, just being persistent and not giving up on a deal, even though when you may think it's done and closed out, you never know. It's come to full fruition for other deals. I had conversations back in 2019 with companies who I didn't think, would do anything. And then guess what? COVID hit and they're searching for somebody who can be very flexible and time critical. And now I'm talking to them. So there's so many different ways things can change decision making. You just can't stop. There's just you just can't give up.
It's great. Awesome. Same question. And what are 3 things when you look back on it that you would do differently?
I wish I could say there was a lot I would do different, but I don't know what I could do different, honestly. I tried my best on just getting the demonstration set and coming over that objection of free and coffee. I don't know if I'm going to compete with that, but I'm going to try my best. The demonstration itself is, I fine-tune that to a point where it is what it is every single time. If you don't like it, that's, I'm just talking to the wrong person. But then, the VP reaching out was just the cherry on top, just making sure and having the correct people every time is huge. But, through my cold reaching, and, when I got this person, the director level on the phone to set the meeting, at the same time, I was pinging the VP, right? I was reaching out to the VP, her and her team, and getting silence from all of them until she answered, right? So he, at some level, knew of me. Right. Like he knew via email who I was and my name and our company. And then you got the demonstration and that really set it up for him to have like a positive feedback. So, again, I don't think I would change much just because of how smooth it had gone once I got them on. But if I gave up or, signed her off because I thought, oh, she's set, I would have, not even followed through on the deal.
Wow. What a fantastic deal. I guess to wrap this one up, though, any final words of wisdom, things to share with the audience to help them bring more value to their deals?
Yeah, I really think, the story of what I've done in this deal and just my experience here at a new company and a new vertical and a new sale process, from where I started to today is critical for every new sales role or even just a current one. Have a foundational knowledge of everything, right? Starting with your product. Like, you better know, you should be able to answer every single question from any single person. And to be honest, I think that's one of the things that I lacked when I was at Xerox. I was trying to be really good at the demonstrations, production, selling some of the highest volume printers that there were. But I did rely a lot on my service experts to help me answer the question. So it's great, but as a young guy in a sales role, and you're trying to deal with people of a VP level that you lack credibility. And so if you can answer every single question at the back of your hand without looking over and going, well, you become more valuable as a relationship and also as a representative to them. So knowing your product. Number 2, knowing your competition is huge. If you can't relate to what they're doing different and how you're going to beat them or do it better, you're not going to win. And I never talk about my competition, never talk about them negatively, never say their name, never bring them up. But I do relate to things I know they can't do without talking about them directly. And so that kind of paints the whole picture. And I think having that respect for your competition, knowing they're good, they've been doing this for 20 years more, and everyone's loved them, that's great. Phenomenal. Guess what? We're just now another option and do something a little better for you. Give it a shot. If you don't like it, not a big deal, but I promise you're going to like it, right? Because it's the same service, but now it's going to be easier for you. It's not that hard. It's like going from a flip phone to an iPhone, right? Well, no one thought anything needed to change. There were still texting and phone calls, but now, holy cow, I have a computer at my hand, right? So it's the same thing, same service, but now it's like, holy cow, I can do this efficiently. That's crazy. And then right people on the call, right? That's huge. Having the right group listening into you is one of the biggest things that I think has made my deals go faster. Taking more time to get them on the phone allows a faster sales process once you've got them, right? Because you can waste time with a couple of people or, the lower levels. And they're great, but you got to use them to get to that next level. And so because I had somebody who had, a lot of buy-in after the first call, she brought him in without me even reaching out. And that really expedited the process. So it's huge. But then also my last thing I think is just know the questions that you think are going to come. I'm huge at preparation for my meetings. Even this time I join all my demonstrations 5 to 10 minutes early. I know you were on this early too, waiting, but right. You never know if someone's going to join early. 9 out of 10 times they're late, right? But that one time that someone joins early, well, now you have 5 minutes just to bro out. You can have a conversation. That's right. You can learn a little bit about them, or you get started early and you save their time on their calendar. So there's no negatives to being early and prepared. So that's been the biggest thing. And I think a lot of people at my company make fun of me for it because of how kind of OCD I am at being ready and prepared and like going to sit in the meeting room for 10 minutes before everything happens. And they're like showing in right at the time. But I'm just telling you 10 out of 10 times that you're going to be more confident, and also an opportunity may arise for you to capitalize on.
Yeah. Casey, this has been such a wonderful story. So many nuggets in here, tons. I bet you people are going to be listening to this one over and over again. If people wanted to reach out to you further to ask you questions and maybe even ask more about airspace for clients out there that could use it, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. So always a connection, and happy to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. But email, just my first name, Casey, C-A-S-E-Y @airspace.com. And then also my cell phone, 858-757-5026. Like I said, I'm in this game to connect. It's a long-term game. More people that I can connect with, the better. So I appreciate that, Derek.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, Casey, for being on this. I know people are going to absolutely love this episode.
It's a good conversation. I always love talking about spotlight deals, but looking forward to hearing more spotlight deals. We learn from each other. No salesperson's perfect, right? But it's what fits for you, and you got to adapt to what works for you.
That's right. I love the spotlight deal. Well, hey, that's it for today's session. Thank you so much, Casey, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. And for our listeners, if you'd like today's highlights, be sure to check out our summary on salesin21days.com. Have a great sales week, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out our free Top Performer Academy course. Inside it, I'll give you 12 sales tips that only the best salespeople do on a daily basis. Tips ranging from cold calling to running effective appointments, handling objections, and creating urgency in your deals. You can get it 100% free at www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. That's modernSalesTraining.com/free. These 12 tips could be the difference between you having a good month or an incredible one. I hope to see you there.